We spent the day learning about some super heavy topics, compiling our knowledge. We got to hear some amazing speakers and get reminded that we have our responsibility to move forward and that we are the ones who will be doing it.
Yeah, so that means that today is the most crucial day of the weekend, and I'm so glad that all of you are here to continue the work that we've been doing for the past 2 days. So Sunday is where we're going to be making concrete steps forward and taking action off of what we learned on Friday and Saturday. So this is going to be a really pivotal moment for our movements moving forward. But right now, I'm really happy to introduce we've got 4 student keynotes who are ready to speak to y'all today. First up, we have Diana J. from UVA. All right, take it away, Diana.
Not this one? Okay. Okay. I think this is the best I'm going to get to a podium. Ooh, do I need a mic? Hello? Okay, I'll go with a mic. Cool. I'm very much going to read. But yeah, thanks, Ivy. Thanks, MJD. I think Sunday is the most important day, and I'm excited to share some thoughts with you all in the morning from this weekend and from last night. But, so many of the people in this room, I just met this weekend, and it's been really great to share the weekend with you. But a lot of you I also met for the first time in January when our networks first converged together on the General Assembly for Student Power Lobby Days. A lot of people I met last year at Virginia Power Shift for the first time, and a small handful of you I first met when we got lunch together at National Power Shift and shared a vision for what VSEC could be in our state. People in this room have become my friends, my teachers, and my mentors. You've been my teammates along pipeline routes through Canada and my soon-to-be teammates along pipeline routes, cycling along pipeline routes through Virginia. And a few of us can celebrate being cellmates for just a few minutes. Honestly, there's no words I think I can express my gratitude for VSEC and the lessons I've learned from you all, and for my gratitude for the people in this room for your character and your commitment to seeking justice on all fronts across Virginia. Last night, I think I, along with most of us, was really moved by the words of Reverend Yearwood and the thoughts that he shared with us, and luckily I hadn't written my keynote yet, so I mostly want to share some thoughts and reflections about the things that he was talking to us about and the ideas that he shared. And also thoughts from being immersed in this incredible movement energy since we first got here to Fredericksburg on Thursday night. But I want to start off more also where I've been, because when I first came to the University of Virginia, I don't think I could have defined what a movement was to you. As coming out of high school, I was a genuine do-gooder. I spent most of my time fundraising for schools in Uganda, and I started a cycling program in my high school. So I was on this kind of confused mission to understand my suburban privilege and give back to the world at large. I could absolutely define charity to you, but I don't think I could tell you what a movement was. And I've come to recognize, I think, a fundamental way which I feel that my education system failed me, and the way that I see it continuing to fail all of us. I find the greatest tragedy of our standard education system is that we're only taught a limited individualist perspective of social movements. Students are told a tale of history filled with important dates, inventions of iconic individuals, and key pieces of legislation that shaped a new normal. When we learn about the struggle for civil rights, we know Martin Luther King as an individual leader. We know the significance of Brown versus Board of Education, but we're not told about the organized masses. We're not told about the anonymous extraordinaires who dedicated their lives to build collective power to bring our society to a more just state. So I also wanted to ask a question, and for those of you who know me, I ask this question a lot because I think it is kind of telling of where we've come from, but who in this room knows about SNCC? Okay, that is a far better response than normal, which is really indicative of, I think, our own force in this room to reclaim our movement history. But for most of you, and I only started learning about SNCC a year ago, so I want to invite you to kind of learn about that with me. And SNCC was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. SNCC was the driving edge of this youth civil rights movement. It's a coalition of organized and dedicated youngsters who abandoned their lives, abandoned their degrees, to lead massive civil disobedience across the South, and honestly in the most violent areas. The National Civil Rights Movement looked to the leadership of these students, and I think it's the greatest strategy of our how we learn about movements that we're not learning about SNCC and other youth forces in our social movements, that these tales don't make it into our history books. When we do learn about civil rights movement, as much as any social change, we need to learn more than the iconic movement moments, but we need to learn about the struggle. We need to learn about the youth who left school to organize a network of freedom rides, freedom houses, and who opened up freedom schools, who endured police brutality monthly, daily, for years, and who make up the grassroots force of the civil rights movement. If we're told a tale of history that shows social and political change from the perspective of grassroots movements, we would understand that movements are more than megaphone moments. I often hear people say, I think we all have, we're looking back that if I was there, I would have been part of that. But youth today need to learn the stories of youth organizing throughout history to be able to see the opportunities to join today's movements for social, economic, and climate justice. Movements are made up of policy wonks, community organizers, public speakers, phone bankers, website coders. There's time to fill the streets and there's time to fill the jails. They're only waiting for us to join. And so to bring it back to Reverend Yearwood, the words that he shared with us last night reminded me of a story that I wanted to share with you. He talked about asking for a new abolitionist for clean energy and calling this the new generation of freedom fighters on a new battlefield. And the new abolitionist also, I think, absolutely is a reference to SNCC and what he was saying last night. There's an awesome book called The New Abolitionist that I think you should all check out. I bought, I think, 8 copies off Amazon, and I keep giving them to people who's doing this work with me because I think it's such an important story to learn. So his thoughts on talking about this new battlefield made me want to share this story with you that's a little silly, but at the end of every year, I have like a core group of friends, and we get together and reflect on the year that we just had and come up with a name for the year ahead. So to give a little bit of a context of where we've been, last year was the year of the woman warrior. And we spelled, of course, women with a Y because we're no subset. And so that was 2014. And 2015, we tossed around a lot of ideas. We were going with the year of loving your neighbors for a while, the year of the thrift, the year of wilderness, but none of those really seemed to fit what we felt 2015 actually held. The Black Lives Matter movement has dubbed 2015 the year of resistance, and Politico has dubbed this year the year of the veto in response to the anti-progress Congress that we just put into office and Obama's impending veto to KXL next week. But from growing the strength of our grassroots movement to what's happening at the global scale, from the onset of the next global climate treaty to the retirement of the Millennium Development Goals and the adoption of new societal goals for sustainable development goals, the stage is set to make 2015 the fight of our lives. The decisions made and the movements built this year will affect our reality to come for decades, and for at least the next decade and many beyond. And so what we concluded after much disagreement on what this year should be, that we decided it is indeed a year to give it all we've got. This is a year that we don't know we're going to win, but we're going to suit up for the battle and go down with a fight, fearing the far worse reality of deserving what we get having not asked for better. So we've concluded that this is the battle year. The battle year is one that we're not alone in. Our religious communities have stepped up in the fight for climate justice, and our Native American and First Nations communities are idle no more. Our movements are ripe and ready. We've marched 400,000 strong, and have owned the idea that we're not building power any longer to call on our leaders, but we're building power as an objective in itself, to build our own better reality. This is the battle year, a year to strengthen the fight for divestment wins, for blockades, for resistance rides, for local energy and local economies, for civil disobedience where it calls. This is a year for fossil freedom. And outside of the year of climate justice, I think 2015 is shaping up to be a battle year all the same. Sexual violence can no longer hide on university fraternity houses. The idea that we're living in a post-racial America has been driven into the ground by unprecedented Black Lives Matter actions across the nation, throwing the racist bones of our nation into the light again. And the states that have yet to legalize marriage equality now look like sitting ducks on a national map, with movements proving inside to bring about equality. As much as I think we need to look backward and reclaim our movement history, to learn from SNCC and learn to the youth revolutionaries that came before us, I also think we need to look forward and look around in this room and at the power that we hold as students from Virginia. The world that we live in has new rules. We are able to extend the human connection around the world in an unprecedented time and manner. The people have tools at their fingertips to illuminate injustice and enlist comrades in the fight. We own the power in our hands to create the world we want to live in, one built on principles of sustainability, community, simplicity. And I believe that climate change has brought us the fight of our lives. And as Rev. Yearwood shared with us last night, this is our lunch counter movement of our generation. But we're not fighting for equality anymore, we're fighting for existence. So let 2015 be the year that we recognized our collective power and entered full force into the battle. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Diana. Next up, we have Nobile M. Tetwa, who's also from UVA Climate Action Society and UVA Students United. So give it up for Nobile.
Sorry, I'm a little sick. My name is Nabila. I'm a member of both Virginia Student Power Network and Virginia Student Environmental Coalition, and then part of the campus chapters, UVA Students United and Climate Action Society. I want to talk about the significance of both VSPN and VSEC. VSPN focuses more on affordability, accessibility, and upholding democratic values in our education system. And Virginia Student Environmental Coalition focuses more on environmental issues and climate change injustices we're facing in our state of Virginia. I think the most important value between both Virginia Student Power Network and Virginia Student Environmental Coalition is the value and power that comes from being able to see the intersections and oppressions that we all face and that they all stem from the same root. And I think it's so important for both groups to work together in terms of fighting, the roots of capitalism and neoliberalism. I think it's so powerful for us to be attacking at, the side of our higher education system and then the side of our fossil fuel industry and corporations. And I've been working really hard with Virginia Student Power Network and UVA Students United on the crippling crisis of student debt. And I just want to talk about how important it is for all of us to collectively be against student debt. I think it's an issue that sometimes we kind of float over. We're like, it's an awful issue. Yeah, it's really bad. We're $1.3 trillion in debt. We're literally funding our government. We need to see the value in uplifting the burden of student debt. We will not be able to move on as a movement if we're have this burden of working 3 jobs or not being able to have the time to organize around our social issues. Having student debt and student loans hinders us from being able to have that privilege to organize like we do. As Rev talked about yesterday, about sort of bringing in people of different backgrounds into our movement. And I think the importance of political battles against oppression cannot be overstated. Oppression seeks to divide and weaken us, and for that reason, I think we need to become the strongest coalition and network of Virginia students against climate change and against affordability issues. In our movement, if we want to speak true to our values, we really do need to work together with everyone in this room, regardless if you're focused on one issue or someone else is focused on another. It's about bringing that power together and focusing our attention on uprooting ourselves from the systems of oppression that we all face. And we will not advance unless we all come together and organize and fight all these oppressions. I just want to talk about a little bit about how I felt last year after Virginia Power Shift. I was first year and just getting involved and stuff, and I came out of Virginia Power Shift really kind of nervous and intimidated almost. I was overwhelmed with all this information, and I was all these people are so organized and they know what they're doing, and I'm just a first year and I don't know anything, but I want to get involved in everything. But I think replacing that feeling of fear and intimidation with empowerment and energy and all this passion in this room is what's going to drive us. I think honing on what you care about and like really educating yourself on issues and working together with, this beautiful crowd of people is what's going to start, great movements in the state of Virginia. The last thing I want to say is we need to crush, the divisions we have among us and, start this revolution in Virginia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nobile. All right, third keynote will be Zachariah from Divest UMW. All right, give it up for Zachariah.
That's not good. Hey, as you guys can hear, my voice is pretty escalated right now. Yeah, I took a similar tactic to Diana and just had faith that VAPS would inspire me to write this speech this morning. So this is your speech as much as it is mine. In moments like this, standing in front of all of you, it's hard for me to understand how I got here. My first experience with organizing and student activism was barely a year ago. I went to a regional recruitment convergence for National Power Shift and met people like Diana and Drew for the first time. And 3 weeks later, after some persistent encouragement from Emily Heffling, I was reading a speech off of my phone about student power in front of a room of eager Virginia youth at what became the first VSEC convergence ever. I didn't truly know what student power was then, and now after 15 or 16 months, I still am not sure that I genuinely understand. I see student power all around me, rings of cross-legged youth on classroom floors, blurs of raised fists and shoulders teamed together. I hear it from worn voices of unwavering students, from the steady rumble of feet marching into offices of our politicians and across the brick-laid grounds of our campuses. I feel it filling me up. I feel it in this room. I feel it pushing me from some place inside of me that I can't quite locate. But as I near my last months as being a student, I still don't know what that force that is student power truly is. What is so incomparably unique about it. I don't. But I've begun to realize that that's part of it. That unknowingness is an essential quality of it. We're all late teens and 20-something-year-olds, and we'd be lying to ourselves if we said we have things figured out. I think I speak for everyone when I say that every single day I question myself, my identity, what role I have in this movement, whether I'm speaking well or engaging with people in the best way, whether I'm just crazy and blindly following these objectives I've attached myself to, whether this is all working, and if it's all as real as it feels. Right now, I'm even doubting myself. And honestly, climate change is an issue that is also marked by great uncertainties and unknowns. We know it's here, and we know it's happening in devastating communities now. We know the statistics and the images of red upward-facing lines on graphs, but we can't truly grasp and imagine the future that we are trying to prevent, nor can we really understand the depth and potential threat of this unprecedented issue. I'm a year and a couple months old as an organizer and an activist, and a lot of you are much younger. Some of you are probably on your second day right now. We are all surrounded by unknowns, but that's what makes us powerful. That's what drives us forward. Because we don't know what really is, but that leaves more space for us to imagine what should be. We're not shaded by dogmas. We're not jaded by experience that tells us what is and what is not possible. Climate change poses the greatest threat that humanity has ever faced, and we've seen people and movements achieve amazing things in history, but none compare to what we'll need to address and mitigate this unequivocally enormous issue. If we base our actions and thoughts on what we know to be possible, we're screwed. So we have to start from somewhere else. Instead, we must accept that we don't know. Instead, we must believe that we will build the movement whose time has come. So everyone in this room, when you feel like you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to organize, you don't know what direction you're going, and if this is all right, don't let that stop you. Don't let that compress the fullness of you, the fullness of who you are and what you're capable of. Dwell in that unknown. Let it surround you and overtake you sometimes, understanding that is the very thing that makes you powerful. Don't let your parents or administration or board of visitors and politicians tell you that because you're too young and unexperienced and riddled with uncertainty that your voice doesn't matter and that you're weak. This is the very thing that makes us students strong. This is why the youth have been at the forefront of every great movement of history. And now, don't get me wrong, we need to be observant and intuitive. We need to note the tactics and the methods of organizing that drive our campaigns forward. That's vital to our progress. But understand that this previously unfathomable issue, that is climate change, does not call for knowers, the organizing mathematicians, the purely rationally minded. It calls for people with determined belief. Belief that we can build something new. Belief that we can dismantle some of the most instantiated and oppressive systems of our societies. Belief that we can create the citizens' movement that humanity has never seen before. No, I don't want to leave you all hanging. So I want to tell you one thing that I do know. I know that what we have here and what we've all seen this weekend is truly incredible. It's truly incredible. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than any individual or collection of individuals in this room. A single cause, an idea, a determined objective that we have created has united hundreds from nearly every single university in this state. We have broken down the silos. And almost every day, my own expectations are shattered and surpassed. It continuously reminds me of just how much we are capable of. You all, every single one of you, inspire me. And I promise you that I will continue to stand hand in hand with you through all the nearly crippling uncertainties, through the moments where it feels like you have to drag yourself forward, through the seemingly endless obstacles and impediments. I promise that I will continue to stand with you, always believing that we can build the movement that the world never knew was possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Zachariah. All right, our final keynote is Rodrigo Velasquez from George Mason. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. So, I wrote a poem. Undocuqueer. Undocumented, queer, unafraid, and unashamed. Undocumented. A journey to a new country, multicultural country, yet shut out. Democracy. Our lands robbed, families destroyed, forced to leave, forced migration, but how is this just? Violence, poverty, damage to our environment, free trade. Democracy. We move based on necessity, yet never question what created that necessity, who robbed our lands, who privatized our waters, who made us farm our foods to export to the rich. Democracy. My anger at the barbarity of this system, democracy, and lies. Queer. My gender and sexual orientation, not being what people think, resistance, challenge. We get killed by police, killed by our neighbors, killed by our families, killed by our friends, but we resist. We are anti-war, anti-poverty, anti-prison, anti-racist, and anti-sexist, but wait, at least we used to be. Money. Now the rich white get to gentrify our neighborhoods, corporatize our nonprofits, tell us how to act, tell me what to wear, how to talk, what is in, what is out, and decide I'm out. We asked to be included, to be assimilated, when we used to demand that we be liberated queer. The nasty word they try to call us, but our history tells us otherwise. Queer is resistance and creating anew, dismantling what oppresses us and building what will let us live unafraid. A growing sensation, hearing sheroes speak their truth, live their lives, refuse to be another statistic, unafraid, unafraid, unafraid. Their words fill my soul with strength, a loving strength and a hidden strength. Their words will not be in vain because I am a continuation of that dream. The dream of Zoraida, the dream of Alan, the dream of all those taken out by this world, unafraid, speak up, show up, act up, a rich history of mothers who single-handedly raised their children, las reinas que son el centro de nuestros corazones, queens who resisted and challenged that violence so her hijos wouldn't be in the next generation. Unafraid is her dream, unafraid is her name, unashamed. The biggest struggle for me, not wanting everyone to know that I was their lawnmower, their server, their cook, their at-risk high school student. Unashamed is now my name. My life, my experiences, their lives, their history is in me. Unashamed. Speaking truth to power, demanding I be heard. Undocuqueer. Undocumented, queer, unafraid, and unashamed. So, not everyone might know me, so I think a nice introduction might be, so my name is Rodrigo. I go to George Mason University. I'm a junior right now. And I guess, I don't know if organizing is the word, but I came to this country 15 years and 2 months ago in December of 1999. And I've lived as an undocumented immigrant for a really long time under what people now call a broken immigration system. And I think every single day that I get out of my bed has been organizing because it's been revolutionary for someone like me to just leave my house. And I think of every single undocumented queer person or anybody who faces multiple vectors of marginalization who get out of their beds and stand up to a world that doesn't want us to survive, that doesn't want us to live, that doesn't want us to tell our stories because it'll challenge and make all these things that we've been ingrained to believe, it'll complicate them. Our existence are complicated. Our existence are complicated. But I also realize that this sort of complicated work is necessary, right? Because we don't live in one-dimensional forms of work to try to advocate for social justice because we live multidimensional lives, as Audre Lorde has said. And what I start realizing is this sort of work we can continue every single day because our universities aren't as perfect as we believe them to be. As every single person who might understand, our schools have pride, right, in themselves. They're very proud of their history. They're pretty proud of the work that they do without realizing the actual history of the university, a history meant to exclude Black and brown bodies, to exclude women and gender and sexual outsiders as a purposeful way of settler colonialism and racism in the United States. So when I think about this work, I think about how we need to complicate that narrative. Because I go to George Mason University. Let me tell you about George Mason University. Storm Paglia, someone in our student government, has said that I am an illegal that needs to be deported. Later on, he said that Black people are monkeys. This is the school that I go to. And this is the reality that we have to live every single day. We have racists, white supremacists, right? People who are so effed up. I was about to say that word. But we also have student leadership that defends them and instead try to criminalize me for saying that they were white. So when I think about this work and I think about how we can probably find connections in these correlations within our own universities, in our own spaces, and we have to really start challenging that paradigm, that way of learning and understanding, because it really needs to be done within our communities as well. So when we do that, we're able to, tackle the roots of these issues, because our universities have been purposefully depoliticized. Our students no longer care, but that's a purposeful project of a university under a neoliberal model that emphasizes corporatized well-being, the individual instead of the collective. As George Mason University says, we are now a well-being university, without realizing the implications that means, that we're decentralized from the larger structures that we have been pushing for. Because in universities, students have been pushing for collective justice against sexual violence and gender-based violence, against incarceration and deportation, against the wars that the United States is constantly involved in and most likely creating. So I'm kind of winging this. I think it's a lot better to do this kind of from the heart and looking at you all. And also, if I keep going down like this, like my throat starts hurting. So what I think about all this work that we need to do, not just within our universities, but as a collective, right? Because this is my first time coming here, and it's been an amazing experience to be able to connect and hear you all, because at George Mason University and in other different spaces, I have to check myself. Even within immigrant rights spaces, I have to check queerness, my class. Within, queer spaces, I always have to check my race, my undocumented status. So we start realizing that when we're in these spaces and we're able to live our lives, unapologetically, without having to check aspects of ourselves, we're able to really create this comprehensive justice that is fully liberating, this trickle-up system that demands our survival, that doesn't ask for legal reforms, that asks for equality. We don't want to be equal, we want to be liberated. And that's an important thing to think about, because equality is complacency with the same systems that are meant to kill us. Whereas liberation tells us that we dismantle these systems and we're going to build these systems. We might not know these answers right now. If anyone went to the panel yesterday on Black Lives Matter, we don't know exactly, how to achieve the goal, but we know that we want that goal. We need an end to police, an end to this desire to want to have people imprisoned, right? As Angela Davis says, prisons are obsolete. What I think then we have to start thinking about when we do these sort of work is that we have to collectively build towards that. But that also includes dismantlement, and that's not something that we need to be asking just simply through equality. Equality is not going to get us anything. So we need to start building a politics that demands climate justice for things, right? An end to this need on carbon, an end to capitalism built on slavery and white supremacy within the United States. That's how this sort of capitalism was built and what's created the climate injustices that exist today. We need a politics that demands that gender and sexual outsiders aren't criminalized and killed. And we need to stop trying to ask for anti-discrimination laws that reinforce police power, because who brings most of this violence to queer and trans people? The police. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's something that we need to start recognizing and building for. We need so many things. We need to stop incarcerating and deporting people. Under the Obama administration, we've deported over 2 million undocumented immigrants. A deportation machine that a lot of people have cried is inhumane, unjust, and needs to be stopped. And it's slowly being deconstructed. So that's not really, something uplifting, is it? But I want to say that, a lot of this work is, not exactly a happy fairy tale ending. We live in a really messed up society, but we're here to try to build something that will let all of us live.